Every war leaves behind warehouses of abandoned equipment, rifles without ammunition, vehicles without fuel, radios without power, packs stuffed with gear their owners could no longer carry. History is, well, brutally consistent on this point. Stockpiling equipment has never guaranteed survival. Skill, however, has again and again across eras, climates, and levels of technology. Modern prepper culture often assumes that collapse will be survived by those who own the most gear. Military history argues the opposite. Wars reveal that gear-heavy thinking collapses first, while skill-based systems adapt. The reason is simple. Gear is static, war is not. From Napoleon's invasion of Russia to Germany's advance into the Soviet Union in 1941, armies that believed supplies could be planned and cached ahead of reality suffered catastrophic losses. Supply trains froze, were captured or outran themselves. Warehouses were bombed, roads disappeared. What soldiers carried on their backs became the limit of their world. The same pattern appeared in the Pacific during World War II. Japanese forces stockpiled ammunition and food in fixed depots, assuming controlled territory. When the front shifted or air superiority changed, those stockpiles became unreachable. Soldiers trained to live off stored rice starved within sight of jungles that could have fed them, because, well, they lacked the skills to exploit them. In contrast, units that emphasized adaptability fared better even with fewer supplies. Australian and American troops trained in junglecraft learned how to trap, forage, improvise shelter, and move light. They still preferred resupply, but they weren't paralyzed without it. Gear didn't fail because it was useless. It failed because it created dependency. Stockpiles assume three things that rarely survive conflict: stability, access, and predictability. War destroys all three. First, access. You can't use what you can't reach. In every modern conflict, units were separated from their supplies by enemy action, terrain, weather, or, just simple chaos. Soldiers who planned to go back to their cache often never did. Second, security. Fixed stockpiles attract attention. They are stolen, destroyed, or commandeered. In occupied Europe, resistance fighters avoided hoarding weapons or food in large quantities because discovery meant death. Instead, they hid skills, knowledge of routes, contacts, and local resources. Third, weight. Gear that isn't carried might as well not exist. And honestly, gear that is carried slows movement, increases fatigue, and limits options. Many soldiers learned the hard way that carrying less made them more survivable, not less prepared. These realities are not theoretical. They are, in fact, documented repeatedly in after-action reports, memoirs, and casualty analyses. Skills travel with you. They don't rust, leak, break, or run out of batteries. And more importantly, they adapt to context. Navigation is a prime example. Armies that trained soldiers to read terrain, shadows, wind, and landmarks continued to move when compasses failed or maps became useless. Those dependent on instruments stopped. Firecraft tells the same story. Troops who knew how to build concealed, fuel-efficient fires survived cold environments with minimal resources. Those who relied on issued stoves froze when fuel ran out. Weapon maintenance offers another lesson. Soldiers trained to understand friction, heat, and contamination could keep weapons running with minimal materials. Those dependent on specific lubricants or cleaning kits suffered stoppages when supply chains broke. In every case, the common factor was understanding, not equipment. Preparedness fails when it treats gear as a solution rather than as a tool. History suggests a different hierarchy. Skills first, tools second, stockpiles last. This doesn't mean owning nothing. It means, well, owning only what amplifies skill. A knife is valuable if you know how to use it for food processing, shelter building, and repair. Without those skills, it's just dead weight. A water filter matters if you understand where water actually exists and how to access it safely. Otherwise, it solves the wrong problem. Practical preparedness begins by stripping assumptions down to fundamentals. Can you move long distances without exhaustion? Can you navigate without electronics? Can you stay warm with minimal fuel? Can you source calories without resupply? Can you maintain critical tools using substitutes? These are not abstract questions. They are answerable through practice. One lesson is load discipline. Historically, effective soldiers carried less than modern civilians, often packed for weekend outings. The difference was confidence. Knowing how to improvise reduced the need to carry backups for everything. Practicing movement under load teaches what is truly necessary and what only feels reassuring. Another lesson is environmental literacy. Survivors understood their terrain. Desert troops learned how wind shaped dunes and where moisture collected. Forest fighters recognized edible plants, animal signs, and shelter opportunities. Urban resistance members memorized building layouts, stair counts, and escape routes. None of this required gear, only attention and repetition. A third lesson is repair over replacement. Wartime survivors fixed what broke. Clothing was patched. Tools were sharpened beyond their expected lifespan. Weapons were kept functional with improvised materials. Modern culture replaces. Survival culture repairs. Finally, there is social skill. Wars repeatedly show that lone stockpilers fare worse than those who can cooperate, trade, and integrate. Cigarettes, alcohol, food knowledge, and mechanical skill became currencies far more valuable than hoarded goods. The ability to be useful kept people fed and protected. Systems assume continuity. Skills assume disruption. So when power grids fail, electronic gear just becomes, well, inert. And when supply chains fracture, all that specialized equipment suddenly turns into a liability. You know, when plans collapse, it's skill that fills the gap between intention and reality. This is exactly why veterans often scoff at overbuilt kits. They've seen firsthand just how quickly reality strips gear down to the essentials. What really remains is judgment, restraint, and of course, competence. History doesn't argue against preparation, far from it, but it does argue, quite clearly, against mistaking accumulation for actual readiness. Every war, honestly, proves the same uncomfortable truth. Those who prepared by owning things felt secure, at least until those things were lost. But those who prepared by learning, well, they endured even after everything was taken from them.